Hi, I'm Gareth Lewis, MD of MT Finance. I'm here with Jordan, who is CEO of AFIG. We're going to talk about the market this year and what we're thinking would happen in 2025. Our take on the opportunities and where possibly the property market and financial market will go.
Cool.
Thanks for joining us.
Welcome. Pleasure.
How's 24 been? You know, in terms of the property space, in terms of the transactional guises, you know, what's sort of hit the sweet spot this year?
I think it's been a tough year. I think you know, you hear people talk all the time. It's the best year ever, and it's this, that, and the other. And look, it's been positive, but it's not been without its challenges. I think, you know, economically, it's been difficult all around for everybody. I was laughing to someone the other day saying that it's the first time in my guise of my role that, you know, we've been through a credit crunch, we've been through Brexit, but there's always been some part of positive, whereas at the moment it feels like everything is on you. So I think to have got through it with the kind of target that we set and we've got there, I think it's pretty good.
And obviously, excuse the pun, but obviously adapting the business this year and the changes to the business this year, has there been a different focal point within the property sector that you've tried to align yourself with more?
Not really. I think what we've tried to do best we can do, I'll probably go on to the same thing with you in a second, I think we've just tried to be opportunistic. We've seen what people are buying, where they're buying it, what they're refinancing and why, and we just kind of got on the train and done it really. But I think, you know, I find it probably more interesting to hear from your point of view what you've seen, because everyone's seen in the news that you've gone through securitisation and, you know, the business obviously got bigger and bigger. So I think it'd be interesting from your point of view what's changed.
Look, I think 24 for us was an opportunity to grow. We looked at where we were in the marketplace from a bridging perspective, you know, not far into our journey on the buy-to-let arena as well, which has obviously been a hugely disjointed marketplace, the buy-to-let space, for quite some time. You know, off the trust budget and interest rate environment changes that happen from there, you know, the volatile nature that swap rates, you know, which is you know, an area that people didn't really understand at the beginning of or back end of 23. But we targeted some strategic growth, how we can look to evolve the business further into areas. You know, buy-to-let was a key example of that. As you say, we took part in the securitisation a month or so ago that completed, which is great from our perspective because it's another area for us, but it's also a pat on the back. And I think it shows the growth and the strength of the business going forward as well, because to go through the ratings agency process where you're getting the 4 big ratings agents coming in and evaluating the business as a whole, you know, it's quite a unique experience.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So that was what daunting in some ways, because it's a new area.
Now you got through it. It was fun, was it?
I'm not at the fun stage yet for it, but it was interesting, and I think it gives us a platform to grow from as well, and I think that's a big thing to look at from that as a big positive out of the securitisation from that side.
Out of interest, so we have obviously got, well, I'm based in London, as you know, we've got the head office in St Helens, we've got one in Birmingham, so we found things to be we can start to see patterns in regions where things are going. Like, so I don't know, have you found the same? Do you see there's more opportunities in different regions? Is it completely spread across all of it, or how do you find that?
Thankfully, our business is quite diverse, that we cover, you know, from a geographical point of view, we do cover the whole of the UK market, obviously excluding Ireland from that perspective and Scotland. But in terms of England and Wales, the reality is, you see some of the same trends, they're just at different scales. Yeah. So your refurbs and your renovations, you know, we'll see multi-unit blocks in London and the South East that will be people taking opportunities to improve and get more value out of them from that perspective. But also we see property investors through the buy-to-let side looking at speculation in terms of yield play. So then they're looking at, you know, your smaller chimney pots, as it were, your cheaper properties where there's a high yield. But I think the big trend that we see everywhere is people looking at how they can add value. Yeah. And whether that be adding value from a yield perspective or whether that be looking to add capital value, you know, I think that's the diversification that property investors and people alike are always looking to try and do when they're talking about property.
Yeah, that makes sense.
How have you found the regulated side then? As we sort of touched on, you probably transacted more in that this year than you ever have done, I would
Yeah,
maybe
we have
say.
massive. I think the big part of that is that I think that's very much economy driven, because we've always tried to keep things simple, as I know you do, and we look at things to say, if you want to utilise what we're trying to give to you to get to where you want to go. Ordinarily, it was just put your equity in, valuation should come back okay. All the pitfalls of what we do, but then what we found is that people are now understanding they can use the regulated part of the market to either top up for business purposes and to move things forward. But we've also seen where people are going from their mortgage rates that were very, very, very low from years ago, and they come to fixed terms. A lot of the people that we try to work with or advise best we can do is they are seeing markets where they can put the house on maybe regulated bridge for 12 months, because in 12 months time they're best to fix at that stage then. So that's what we've sort of seen, and again I think you quite rightly put it at the start of this, and it's the way I've always seen bridging in particular. It's a tool, it's a widget, it's something to get you to where you need to get to, and I think there's a massive misconception with that. It's always been the poor relation, hasn't it, in the finance world, but we've all called it specialist, but at its heart it is a bridge. It's to get you from where you need to be. So we found it interesting. It's not the one thing that we want to potentially build the back of the business on. We'd rather it be there in the armoury if we need it. Yeah. Which I think as long as we focus on that, then we'll use it when we need to.
Yeah, look, and I think it's better to have it in the armoury than not. One of our diversifications, a few years ago now, was into that regulated space, because beforehand, MT Finance hadn't transacted in the regulated arena. But it was a natural growth from our perspective to move into it, and now it represents 50% of our bridging lending. Yeah, wow. So it might be slightly a touch over actually. Yeah. So from something that we were plugging in to help grow the business has now become a staple part of it, because there is a necessity and a need in that marketplace for common sense based approach to lending in the regulated arena, where you're supportive of, as you say, the economic climate around there. From that perspective. So that's continued to go from strength to strength, I think, in the bridging market as a whole anyway.
Yeah. Talking specialist finance industry, just that alone, so taking all the economic and other bits out of it. So before we go on to what does 2025 look like for MT, and yours a little bit, but what do you think the biggest development of this year has been within our space, which has changed the way we work the most, or what's a significant change?
Do you know what? I don't think there's been necessarily a big significant change. I think the market has become more institutionalised. Mm-hmm. Some people would think that's a bad thing. Certainly a lot of the older people that have been around the market for quite some time would probably say that's a bad thing. But I think...
Could you whisper the word professional?
Yeah.
That might offend a few people, but yeah. I think it's become a lot more of a professional environment. I think sorry to interrupt you, but I think conversation we've had a few times, usually with a pint of something in front of us, is that a generation of people have fallen away naturally. They've retired, they've whatever, and it's fun. I don't seem to see that pattern repeating. To have they were characters. Let's be frank, they were good people. We like them all. We've grown up with them to a point, but it's funny. I do think there's an air of professionalism which is now
wholeheartedly. And I've been in this space for almost 25 years, and the reality is the change of the marketplace from where it was when I first joined, and the stigmas that were attached to it, the lender of last resort and all the sort of paraphernalia that goes. Yeah, exactly. That's far removed from where the sector is now, and there is a more professionalised marketplace. Look, there is still short barriers to entry that have to be overcome from that perspective, but I think the broker environment and those that transact in the specialist arenas are far more mindful of who they transact with, because it's their reputation that's on the line as well. It's not just a case of chuck it in with the lender and then I don't have to do anything and I don't have to worry about the end of the picture. Brokers now are far more aware, and they've got a heightened awareness of what the whole transaction looks like from start, cradle to grave, as it were, from that perspective. I think the diversification of funding that comes into the marketplace is a good thing as well.
Yeah, agreed with that.
I did a podcast or webinar probably 2 years ago, and one of the points that was raised was it's all about the strength of funding. But to my mind, it's never been about the strength of funding. It's all about the diversification of funding. When you're looking at a lender that you would rely upon, and you're looking at a market that's fragmented or has a bit of disruption in it, one funding line that's really strong becomes a really weak funding line if they suddenly don't want to be in that space.
Absolutely.
So having that ability to encompass all elements of transactional volume through your funding partners and how you distribute your funding from that perspective is a big thing. And that goes from me as a lender and you as a aggregator and a broker from that perspective. And I think that's always been part of the DNA of MT Finance, is that accountability and consistency and can-do attitude, which is it is the DNA of MT Finance. It's been around for 17 years almost, and the reality is we've always done what we've said on the tin. We might not be the cheapest, we might not be the highest on the leverage point of view. Loan to value isn't something that we chase from the prescription that some of the market do. But what we'll always be is consistent, and people can pick up the phone to our underwriters, they can have an open dialogue about the transaction and iron out the wrinkles, which bridging finance notoriously does. And the same principles apply in the buy-to-let space. We want to have the same DNA through every strand as we grow, that is that can-do, responsive to the marketplace and supportive of the marketplace. As long as we consistently do that and we continue to do that, and that's the custodians of our brand that come in, new people that join the business as well, identify with that's what we want to be, then we're winning. That's a big thing from our perspective.
And I think you can, from an outsider's looking in, we always use the word culture, and we always laugh about it, saying, and it's the one big thing. Josh and Tom have done obviously an incredible job building what MT is, but I think when you came along, you could see there was a culture, not change, but there was a culture focus. And I think the people who have come in since and the people who may have gone away, I think obviously time right for certain people to move on, but I think the people that I feel I talk to on a day-to-day basis now is there's a single focus to get things done. And the one big thing that I like in particular about MT is that everybody's empowered. We can work. I was chatting to the girls before from the office, and I said, "Who's worked on that? Who's the underwriter on that case?" And it was a person I've never heard of before. And I think if I talk to other lenders, and if putting my cynical hat on, I'll go, "I don't know who they are. I might have to watch this a little bit." But here I don't. I never feel, if I don't know who someone is, I don't feel the need to step in and work out if they're doing the job. It's a given.
Yeah.
But there's been evolution there, even in the last probably 6-8 months. Larger loan sizes, AVMs, there has been evolution. So I think moving into 2025, are there further evolutions again? Are there things that you're looking to bring in? Are there things where, again, I've always thought the process here is pretty speedy anyway.
Yeah.
But is there things that you can, I know you're massive advocates of making it as simple as possible for the borrower, broker, everyone involved. So are there things going to be brought in to further?
Yeah, look, the one thing that we always do well is we evaluate under a microscope how good we are. And that's on all facets of the business. So we look at how good our process is through the start to the end, so that we can make sure that we're the best version of ourselves. And that's something that we have to maintain. You can't sit there and go, "Oh, we've made it," and sit in our ivory tower and go, "We don't have to do anything, we don't have to improve." I think what we want to do next year is reevaluate process flows, make sure that we have the right efficiencies in play, so that what is the bread and butter for us, is straightforward, is supportive still of the marketplace. And then from there, we can then look at how do we evolve from a credit and criteria perspective. Do we have a weakness in our appetite that we can improve? And the synergies between what we offer from a term side, so the mortgage side, into the short term, are we making sure we highlight the synergies correctly that allows us that element of growth, so that we're actually supporting both sides of the business together. We're looking at other opportunities to bleed in other products as well. So 2025 from our perspective will be same as usual, but making sure we're better, and then look at where we can add in other areas. Look, thank you for taking the time to watch this conversation. Hope that you've taken something away from it. We look forward to working with you all in 2025. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.